Michelle Fox and welcome back to The Simple Quilter. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this type of little booklet. Now this booklet is one of my favorite pieces of quilting equipment simply because I love making half square triangles. I snowball a lot of blocks, and this holds down the fabric while I draw lines on it. It holds the fabric in place and it keeps me from distorting the fabric so that I get good crisp lines when I have to mark on fabric. And then this is just a little cutting mat that's so easy to cut on, and it's easy to take to quilt retreats or when we go camping. I'm just going to show you my version of doing this. Several of you have asked if I could show how to make this, and if you wait to the very end, I'm going to show you a very inexpensive way to make a fabric tracing / drawing board. Don't forget to check out the So Many Quilty Things website. All of the t-shirts that I wear can be found on that website, and don't forget to use the coupon code for 15% off sewing and quilting apparel. I wanted to put a little something different on my design wall today, and I needed some inspiration and motivation to get these quilted, so I put these two table runners up there to just help inspire me and motivate me. Okay, so this is the booklet that I had, and these are the two new ones that I made. I really like the fabric on both of these. Okay, so let's go over the supplies that we're going to need. And before we get started, some of you might notice this little bump in my mat. I made a big mistake when I was filming the other day and set an iron on its heel there, and it warped my mat. So I have got to get a replacement mat for that. You're going to need a cutting mat, and my cutting mat, the outside edges measure 8 3/4 by 11 3/4. So when you're hunting for a mat, be sure you know the outside measurement, not the grid lines, but the outside measurement of the entire mat. That will be important. And then over here, you're going to need some sandpaper. And I use a really fine sandpaper. This is, I just purchased this at our local Walmart. And you get 4 sheets of paper in here. 2 are 400 grit and 2 are 600 grit. And either of those will work for this project. Now, inside this, I've used Masonite. My husband this is Masonite, and my husband cut these for me. These are 9 by 12 inches. That's why it's super important to know the size of this. You've got to know the size of this externally, around the edges, before you cut your Masonite. And the Masonite is cut just a tiny bit bigger. And you'll need 2 pieces of that. You're also going to need a hot glue gun and glue sticks for your glue gun. I use a piece of 3/4 inch foam board that I use when I'm putting, you'll see when I assemble this, so I'll be using that. This piece of fabric is 3 inches by 12, and that will kind of be for part of the binding of the quilt. You want this piece smaller than your mat and smaller than your sandpaper. So this is actually 3 by 12 inches, and then I have folded it under so that it's a little bit shorter than the sandpaper as well as the mat. You're going to need a piece of decorative fabric. I just love these owls. This piece is cut 15 by 21.5 inches. You're going to need a piece of batting that's cut 13.5 by 20.5. You're going to need some spray adhesive of your choice. I use Gorilla Glue spray adhesive. It's a heavy duty glue. Now, whenever you're using these glues, be sure you're following the instructions on the can. You're going to need to be sure to read those because most of the time you're going to need a well-ventilated area, but be sure to follow the instructions there. I also use this Gorilla Glue Super Glue to adhere the mat down, and you're going to need some protective gloves. Now with my gloves, I get my gloves so that they're really, really tight so that I can work well with them. I don't work well in gloves that are too loose, so you'll need some protective gloves. And then you'll see me use these little fingertip protectors when I'm doing the hot glue. That just helps protect my fingertips from getting burned. I also put my glue gun on a piece of cardboard or paper to help protect the surface because it's going to drip a little bit. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're just going to put your piece of batting down and you're just going to smooth it out. And then if you use Masonite, you're going to put this rough side down. Okay, then you're going to take your piece of foam board or anything else that's 3/4 of an inch, and you're just going to put it right there on that. Then your second piece with the rough side down, you're going to put right there. Now I have cut this so that there's not a lot of extra, and I didn't want a lot of excess fabric causing bulk on this side of the board, but I did want enough to come up over the edges and the corners to help soften those corners and edges. I have my protective fingertips on, and I'm just going to put the glue along the edges of the boards and pull this up. I'm not going to worry about getting glue on this surface yet. Alright, so I'm just going to start along the bottom here. Gonna get a good stream of glue there. And then I'm just gonna pull that up. Being careful not to burn my fingers. And I'm just gonna keep doing this all around on the edges. Okay, then at the corners, I'm just going to pull this together and I'm going to clip a little bit off the top. And I'm going to clip a little bit off, just like that. Just to reduce the bulk there. Put a little bit of glue on there and just pull that right over the edge. Just like that. Now right here, there's just not a whole lot, but I am going to trim a little bit right here. Just to reduce some of that bulk. Pull that over. Now since I have a little bit extra there, I am going to lay that flat like that and pull that down. Now, when I put the second layer of fabric on, it will pull the rest of this over. I just want to avoid a lot of extra gluing. I don't want a bunch of glue up on the top of this board. And the reason I try to avoid excess gluing here, because I want my mat to lay flat and I want the sandpaper to lay flat. Now, I do want to tell you that I do starch this fabric heavily, simply because they're easier for me to work with and they're going to lay flatter. So the next thing you're going to do is you're just going to start gluing this down. And I try to keep the bead of glue out here, and when I put a bead on, I try to smooth it out really good with my gloves. I mean with my fingertips that are protected. So just one strand of glue, and then quickly I'm going to press that down so that it's flat, and so that I don't have a big lump of glue right in that area. Okay? I'm going to do the same thing along here, trying to keep the glue as close to the edge as possible. Putting that on and smoothing it down good. Now when you're doing this, you want to be sure that you don't get the boards out of alignment with each other. Flatten that glue down the best you can. Okay. Okay, we're going to do the same thing up there, and you want to pull it a little snug. You don't want to pull it just super, super tight. You don't want to distort it, but I'm going to put that bit of glue there, quickly fold it down, and secure that. Now, as you notice, I haven't done anything with those corners yet. Now I'm going to show you how to trim down the fabric here in the corner. So all you do is you fold that up like that. You're going to cut down, straight down, about 1 inch away from the corner, and then you're just going to cut straight across there, just to reduce the bulk. And you can also cut a little bit of this up at the top. Okay? Then, what you're going to do is you're just going to take this edge and you're just going to pull it up like that and glue it down. And I pull this piece really snug to get that down good. Okay, so you want to be sure this space right here is maintained, and we're simply going to glue this on. And we're going to be putting our paper on one side and our mat on the other. So you want to be sure that these edges come down below the edges of the mat and the paper. Protected fingers. Same thing here. Just as flat as you can get it. You don't want any bumps in there, or you're going to be drawing over bumps. Okay, then all we need to do is put our paper in place and our board board in place. Now I have a setup ready for spraying this, and I'm going to show you that next, and then I'm going to spray this and run in, and I'm just going to put it down right there. So I wanted to show you the setup that I use for spraying the adhesive onto the back of my sandpaper. This is just a TV dinner tray, and I've just covered it with a plastic bag to protect it from the sticky residue. Of course, the grit of the sandpaper is facing down, and I'll simply follow the instructions on the glue adhesive, the spray adhesive, spray that on there, and then hurry inside and get it onto my board. Now, an important thing to remember is to be sure that the surface is flat so none of the glue gets up underneath on the front side of the sandpaper. And when I actually get ready to spray, I'll move it out into the yard and away from the wall or anything that sticky residue can get on. And again, once you get that spray on there, you got to hurry inside to get it in place because the adhesive sprays do dry quickly. Okay, I just came directly in from outside, and I'm going to put my paper down and smooth it down. Now you want to be sure you've got it away from that edge a little bit so that when you fold, that doesn't get folded. And when I sprayed this, I was careful to get the edges really good. All right. Okay. Now I'm going to glue this down. Now, since this is Gorilla Super Glue, I am definitely going to wear gloves because I don't want super glue on my fingertips. I've glued my fingertips together before, and that is not anything fun. You want to be sure your surfaces are clean, and it doesn't take just a ton of this super glue, but I want to be sure to get it in the corners good so that the corners will lay down, and in this part, because this part's going to come in direct contact with this, and I think it's going to stick better. And again, with this, you're going to want to move. With this, you're going to want to move pretty fast because super glue has a tendency to dry quickly, and you really do want to avoid globs like what I just did. So I'll be trying to smooth that out some and be sure I'm pressing that flat. But it doesn't take just a ton of the super glue, but again, you do have to work fast because super glue, as you know, dries super quick. Again, you want to be away from the board there. You want to get it out close to the edge, and then you just want to press it down really firmly. You can even put something heavy on that if you want. But there you go. Say you just want the fabric tracing drawing piece of this project. This is a cheap and expensive way you can do it. You're going to need just a few basic supplies. You're going to need a piece of foam board. This is inexpensive stuff you buy at Walmart. You're going to need a piece of sandpaper. And I use that non-slip shelf paper to put on the back. So non-slip shelf paper and just the sandpaper. So that's lightweight, portable. So the form board is cut 9.5 and 11 by 1/2. And to be real honest, I use a rotary cutter that I use only for craft projects, and I just use that and one of my rulers to cut this. Okay, you're going to go outside, you're going to spray the back of that, you're going to lay it down and smooth it down. And it's going to look just like that. All corners are sealed. The edges are down. Then I just took some non-slip shelf paper because when I'm drawing, I don't want the board sliding all around, so I just put non-slip shelf paper on the back of that. You can get that at the dollar store. Now, it does have kind of a bumpy side and a flat side. So when I spray this adhesive on, I spray it with the bumpy side down, and I just spray it on just like I did the sandpaper. Then you're gonna have your foam board ready. You're gonna take this outside, put the bumpy side down, spray that, run back in here, flip it over there, and smooth it out. And it's gonna look just like this. I used this for years before somebody gave me this. And I really, really do like this. You can see how much I've used it, actually. But, again, a little bit more involved. Expensive version versus the cheap, inexpensive version. And this really does just as well, especially if you don't need the cutting mat. Again, these are one of my favorite pieces of quilting equipment in my quilt room. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you've enjoyed today's video, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. Please share with a friend. And as always, leave a comment. I love to get the comments, and I try to reply to each and every one. So until next time, have fun quilting.